Now I want to talk about post-ban. So post-ban. I want to talk about post-starter decks. So I realize I need to add in the Sanji leader as well from PRB. Do I have a picture of the Sanji leader? I should. I will look for it again. But yeah, I need to add a Sanji leader into this later. So for 08.5 post-ban, similarly, I think one of the best decks now is going to be Flamingo after the ban. After the starter decks. The starter decks have boosted him to a really, really good position. He's strong, he's fast, he has card draw, he has blockers, he has top end options. I think the deck, he even has removal. So he really can do everything. And with the ability of scrying with Perona, you're also going to be able to do this very consistently. You're able to plan out your turns many turns in advance. So that's how you'll feel like, oh, this Dofi always has perfect curve on me. Because he can shift his hand to match that. So for me, I think Dofi is going to be one of the best decks post-ban in 08 and post-starter deck. Now, I think other than that, Pudding will now slightly struggle into Dofi as well because of the early pressure and the consistency that you have in finding Jinbei as well as the Boa blocker being a very strong 6-turn turn. So even if you take first away from the Dofi, now they are very, very good as well. I feel like the matchup is still going to be reliant on whether Pudding can make it to the later stages of the game. But if it does make it, if she does make it that far, I think the Pudding may edge out. Now, other than that, currently what seems to be the consensus is that these three are the best decks in format. With Luchi beating Dofi, Dofi beating BY, and BY still beating Luchi, right? That seems to be what people are thinking. Now, I'm going to put my personal opinion onto this. So, in my personal opinion, I think Luchi is going to go down and Mako is going to go up here. Now, my personal opinion is that Mako is a really, really good deck. I think with the new ST New Gate, he's very, very consistent. He is very strong. He has a very good game plan for going first and for going second. I think it has a lot of tools to deal with all of the decks that are top here. And the reason why Zoro moved downwards after the starter deck release is because one thing is I think the Dofi is much stronger at matching Zoro value for value now. Especially with the Boa blocker, he's going to be able to save hand cards more. Cope your land. I really think Mako is probably one of the top 3 decks in the format, if not top 4. And the other deck that I think has really risen in accordance to all of these decks being meta is also Bonney. So for now, right, let's pretend that I'm not coping here with the Mako, right? I think Bonney is really good now because of the fact that Luchi is no longer as strong. Its matchup into BY is really good. Its matchup into Dofi is pretty decent as well. So that's the 3 things that put it at the... So that's the thing that puts Jewelry Bonney at the top right now. I think just recently we saw Dobogi Noel win a flagship with it. It's a very good deck. I think it's clear. It has very good and advantageous matchups into the rest of the format now. I think a lot of people are still figuring out what to play, but the main reason it's back is because, again, the main gatekeeper, Apilor, is gone. So there's no reason why it's struggling so much as well. Other than the main gatekeeper being gone, the secondary gatekeeper, which is Luchi, is significantly weaker, which means they can no longer remove your board so consistently, which is what made Bonney so much weaker in that matchup. But now, with the stage not being a thing, it's very difficult to actually clear. Not only that, right, with the stage no longer being a thing, there's actually not a good way to clear Hawkins on curve. In the past, you were able to leader swing, tap your stage, and then play Jack to clear the Hawkins. And then suddenly, Bonney's only tool against you is removed, right? But now there's no way to do that, right? You have to do that on your 8 Dawn turn instead with Tempest Kick Jack, which makes it a lot less consistent as well. So Bonney, again, receiving a huge buzz because of that. Other than that, Dofi builds at the moment do not have the space to play cards like Red Rock, to play cards like Kaido. So a lot of them are not able to deal with 8-cost kit very effectively as well, which makes Bonney fairly decent into the Flamingo as well. Now, that's why I'm here to recommend that Mako is probably one of the top decks as well. At the moment, Mako has a very good answer, into Hawkins still. Mako can drop 7-cost Newgate, attach 1 Dawn to leader, rested, and then after that KO the Hawkins with the 7-cost Newgate effect. Other than that, Rayleigh is very good at answering 8-cost kit, and you can even do Sanji Rayleigh to answer the 8-cost kit, which gives you a lot of pressure. From my experience playing into Bonney as Mako, I think it's a very favourite matchup. I think BY Luffy is also a favourite matchup. I think Flamingo can be difficult depending on how many Jinbeis they draw, but if you are able to stick the 7-cost beard on the board, it is also a favourite matchup. That's why right now, I wouldn't be playing the deck if I didn't think it was good. So at the moment, I think the Mako is probably the top of A tier, if not is pushing S tier at the moment. Now, with that said, all of the other decks, NL, Luchi still, Zoro, Pudding, Kalgara, I think those are the main ones. And then of course Nami again. For the current A tier, top of A tier for me is Mako, because I feel like it has a very good matchup into the top 3 decks now. So Bonney, BY, Dofi. Right now I think roughly what the matchup spread would be like is Bonney beats BY, BY beats then BY beats most of the stuff underneath. And Dofi should have a slight positive into BY, but again this is dependent on A drawing Pudding or B drawing Gravity Blade. I'm not 100% certain if that's how Dofi builds will be going forward with it, because I know a lot of Dofi builds right now are also focusing a bit more on running more warlords and less events, so they may not even be running Gravity Blade. And if they're only running Gravity Blade, they're not running Red Rock, and then suddenly their Bonney matchup is a lot worse. So I'm not 100% locked in on this either, but I find it difficult to put BY in the top spot now when it has negative matchups into both the Dofi and Bonney, which are also the top decks. It's I think people are still figuring out lah, because for now technically 08.5 is not a real meta. It's only like some shops are doing it and most shops are not doing it. But it's definitely a meta to think about, especially for the West, especially for some of us where we have flagships that are coming up, which are actually following this meta. So I'm going to say that actually, I'm going to take a very big leap, okay? And I'm going to say that Mako is probably going to be S tier for this meta as well. I'm going to say that Bonney beats Dofi, Dofi beats Mako, and Mako beats Bonney, and this is going to be my triangle for the top 3. Now, why I think Luchi has moved downwards is, again, if you've seen the stream games of the Dofi versus Luchi matchup, if the Luchi misses stage, it's actually very difficult, because the Jinbei playing 4+4 makes it very difficult for Luchi to clear with 4-cost Luchi. They will need to burn 2 additional cards to clear 4+4, which is definitely not what they're looking to do, right? Not only that, Bonney, again, Hawkins is much more difficult to clear now. Your Jack is able to get locked by 5-cost Bonney. Your Jack is able to get stunned by 10-cost Dofi. Your Moria plays are much less consistent. Moria on curve can no longer clear a 7-cost with Helmeppo Luchi stage. Moria on curve can only clear a 6-cost maximum. So if Bonney plays Hody Jones on 7 and smacks you in the face for 8, you're not going to be able to answer that Hody Jones with a Moria, which makes you much weaker. You're not even going to be able to answer it with 8-cost Sabo if you switch to that in your builds. The only thing you can do is Jack plus Tempest Kick, and then that will only answer the Hody and not the rest of the board either. So from my opinion, I think Luchi has just gotten much weaker. Similarly, Mako's game plan into all of these decks is very simple. 9-cost Sanji into 9-cost Newgate. And I guess in the Bonney example, 9-cost Sanji into 8-cost Rayleigh. And that will clear most of the board. Against Dofi and Bonney especially, put 7-cost Newgate on the board, suddenly they cannot do much. Even if Bonney answers your 7-cost Newgate by stunning it with Dofi, with a carrot or with a Bonney, you can answer the carrot or Bonney with Rayleigh. Even if they are playing Roshinante and they play Roshinante into carrot, you can leader effect Rayleigh and you can clear the Roshinante, and then you can clear the carrot the following turn with another card. So it's actually very difficult, I feel, for the Bonney to deal with the Mako's board clear. I feel like Mako is basically the new Luchi now, where you would clear board and then after that you will play big bodies, and the 7-cost Newgate is essentially Jack. So that's my current opinion of it. Reiju, again, of course, it's coming back because RP Law is gone. Same thing with Pudding. I think both of these decks have a lot of potential to do well. With Dofi being better in OP after the starter decks 08.5, I think Dofi is going to be very strong still. I think it may even be fast enough to deal with Pudding before they can get to the healing stage. Especially, again, if you draw enough Jinbeis, you'll be fine. I think Reiju will have a slight issue dealing with Dofi's Swarm. If they don't draw enough Nijis, I don't think playing to judge is as feasible anymore as well because of how much value the other decks get out of flooding board, and judge does feel a bit slow. But from my testing, I think it's still winnable. Most of these matchups, I just think Dofi is a little bit difficult. I think Mako is also reasonable into Reiju. The main problem will be that 7 cost Newgate, because again Reiju doesn't really have removal to clear these things. And then the other two decks that again make a comeback are Katakuri and Nami because of RP Law being removed. I think Katakuri has a decent matchup, especially into Mako. I think Katakuri is extremely positive. I think Bonney, again, it's whether the 10 cost Newgate as well as the 8 cost kit can protect you enough. 10 cost Newgate, 10 cost Dofi as well as the 8 cost kit can protect you and wall up while they are 10 mumming your life behind it. And then for Dofi, I think it's slightly favored because of the amount they can push you. So it's very similar to RP Law in that sense. So that's my current opinion on Katakuri. Other than that, Nami, I think, again, Nami is Nami. Beat slow decks, doesn't do well into aggro. And finally, I think Boa. I think at the moment, there's not much incentive to play Boa over Dofi. I think Dofi is more consistent in being able to push wider boards. And Boa's main advantage is it doesn't lose gas as much, and it is able to play more top end. But losing gas has been heavily mitigated by the new Crocodile that lets you draw cards as well. And with the builds running both Crocodile and Weevil, actually Dofi does have quite a bit of hand size still. So end of the day, at the moment, this is what I'm locking in for 8.5 post-ban. I think if I had to choose one of these three to be the best deck in format, I will say I think Bonney is probably up there. I think even against Mako, Bonney is going to be able to pull out wins. That one Dawn Leader effect is so crucial in doing things like protecting you from the Mako's 9+9. So actually 9+9 is only the 9, since she can immediately rest one of the 9 costs as well. But I feel similarly, when Mako is able to answer Bonney with 7 beard into 9 beard into 9+9, Bonney is definitely still going to have a tough time dealing with that. But again, if I had to choose one of these 3 decks to be top dog right now, it's probably going to be Bonney. I think it has a good matchup into most of the decks here. The main bad matchup is still going to be high roll Luchi. If anything, the only real bad matchup for me is, for Bonney, I think is Mako and maybe Luchi. But other than that, I think most of the other decks are very favorable for it. So that's my current opinion for 08.5 post-ban. I think this is probably what it's going to be for a while, but it will take a while for the deck, for the meta to settle fully still. So I'm really looking forward for that to happen. So many guys in my area switch back to Warrior. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Luchi is definitely less consistent now without the stage, but arguably now the game plan is more consistent game to game, because you don't have to think, oh, what if I have stage? Like your numbers are very much just Sakazuki numbers now, and I've definitely built a Luchi deck that I want to test out with my friend Matt, that we might be playing a little bit of games later. But Mr. 7.5, what was the best deck? What did I say was best deck 7.5? Reiju. Yeah, I think Reiju is the best deck, followed by BY Luffy, and I think it was Bonney. Reiju, BY, Bonney, right? Yeah. So that's it for my tier list. It was pretty long. I talked for about an hour. That tier list is just going through everything from 07.5 all the way to 08, so that's why it was so long. With 09 coming up, I'm pretty excited for the different changes. I think Purple Luffy definitely gets a big boost as well. Speaking of Purple Luffy, I think Purple Luffy probably shifts up to A tier after the starter decks as well, because the new Luffy Taro and Zorojiro engine is really good for him. So yeah, that's pretty good. Similarly, I think PB Luffy will be probably around the same tier as P Luffy, but with a little bit of a different flavor. So we will see a bit more once 09 releases, but I don't really want to comment too much. I don't really want to comment too much on 09 for the moment, at least until all the cards release, because then you can really make an accurate description of it. But for now, I think this is basically what my predictions are for the rest of 08.5. Of course, you know me, I'm going to be playing my bird, Mr. Mako, and hopefully I'll be able to prove that he is actually best deck in format, and we will see, I guess, moving forward whether he is or not. Like, I think right now, moving into the rest of 08.5, my only bad matchup as Mako is Katakuri and Zoro. And I don't think these two are very popular decks, so I feel very confident moving forward. I think Calgara is also slightly negative, but again, I don't think it's a very popular deck, so I don't really mind. I think Dofi and Bonney and PY are all very favoured. I think NL is favoured. I think Luchi is unfavoured slightly, but should be not so bad now that stage is gone. Because previously, the only way for Luchi to deal with 9+9 was Ice Age stage, Ice Age. And now they don't have that second Ice Age. So, yeah, I think I'll be fine. Ice Age leader effect is 6. Ice Age Helmepo is 8. Yes, they can't clear with 2 Ice Age. Am I right? Ice Age Helmepo 8 minus 8 plus 1, 9. Ice Age leader effect 6 plus 2. Yeah, they can't clear my 9+9 with Moria Ice Age now, which they could do in the past with stage. So I'm happy that this is now a thing. We will see. Whether or not I'm right about Red Blue Mako being one of the best decks in format. I'll try to prove myself this weekend. Done with the tier list for now. I'm gonna play some games.